Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in less than 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. Thank you so much for listening. Today, trade tensions, a space force, and the battle at the border continues. Plus, a new airline, Apple's emergency plan, and Juneteenth. All that and much more in less than 10 minutes. I'm Erica Mandy. Today is Tuesday, June 19th. You ready? Let's do this. Trade tensions are heating up again between the U.S. and China, and the back and forth is getting closer and closer to a full-on trade war. The Wall Street Journal reports President Trump is now threatening another round of tariffs, this time an extra 10% tax on $200 billion in Chinese imports. That's on top of the tariffs on $50 billion worth of imports announced just last week and set to go into effect next month. China threatened to retaliate right away, so President Trump is now threatening more as a warning. Trump says China's trade practices are unfair, and this must be done to stop them. Critics say American families will be the ones who suffer most because it'll affect businesses and the economy. To be continued. The controversy and the outrage continues over kids being taken from their parents at the U.S.-Mexico border. Lawmakers are still planning to consider new legislation this week, but the number of critics seems to be growing in the meantime. The White House, though, is holding firm. President Trump now says the U.S. won't be a migrant camp. The Homeland Security Secretary says illegal actions must have consequences, that these families are crossing the border illegally, but she said the children are being treated well. But some critics believe the children are being used as a negotiating tool, a way to try and force funding for Trump's border wall. And they say it's just cruel. ProPublica got a hold of secretly recorded audio where you can hear kids who were recently separated from their parents crying and calling for mom and dad. Most of the kids are sent to government-run shelters when their parents are detained. Even some prominent Republicans are going against what the White House is saying and speaking up against what's happening with these families, including top lawmakers and former First Lady Laura Bush. So what exactly will Congress be considering this week, and will any new legislation actually pass? Stay tuned. President Trump wants to start a space force, as in the Air Force, but in space. A sixth separate branch of the armed forces. The president said it's not enough to be in space, but that there should be, quote, American dominance in space. All the details aren't clear just yet. Right now, the Air Force actually does have the Air Force Space Command. So would that be handed over? Not sure. But not everyone thinks this is a good idea. Critics are concerned about the cost, and some are worried about other missions we should be focusing on. Either way, the White House said the president has asked the Department of Defense to get it going. We'll see what happens next. Two different car companies are dealing with trouble right now. First up, Audi. Reuters reports German authorities arrested the Audi CEO. The same guy sits on Volkswagen's board since VW owns Audi. Why was he arrested? Well, it's all stemming from that emissions scandal that started about 3 years ago. Remember, VW and Audi were accused of using illegal software to cheat on emissions tests. It led to a bunch of recalls, some criminal charges in the U.S., and investigators in Europe are still looking into exactly who knew what and when. The other car company dealing with trouble this week is Tesla. CEO Elon Musk says the company has been sabotaged, or that's at least what he put in an email to employees. CNBC reports Musk described how an employee changed the code on some products and then sent out sensitive company data without permission. He told employees to be on the lookout. It's not all bad news in the auto industry, though. Volvo says it'll be ramping up the amount of recycled materials it uses in cars. It wants to make sure at least 25% of the plastics used in new Volvo car models come from recycled materials by the year 2025. So, for example, the carpet might have fibers made from recycled plastic bottles. Reuters reports many big companies are working to use more materials that can be recycled later, but this actually goes a step further, to use recycled materials in the manufacturing. The United Nations gave it a thumbs up. From cars to planes, there could be a new low-cost airline coming. Airline Weekly reports the founder of JetBlue is working on a new airline called Moxy Airways, but it's still in the funding stage. It would apparently service smaller airports around the country. Bloomberg reports it would likely be similar to JetBlue, where it would offer spacious seats and Wi-Fi, but then there would be fees for other services like snacks and seat assignments. Moxy might be ready to fly in the year 2020. We'll get to several more news stories to know today, but first, thanks to today's sponsor, Day in the Life podcast. This is for you if you've ever wondered what it's really like for a Hollywood actress, an Instagram influencer, an NFL coach, or a speechwriter.
Because a speech is a story. That's what it is. It's you starting at one point and getting your audience to another point.
This show takes you behind the scenes as guests share a typical day in their life's work. Go to dayinthelifepodcast.com or search Day in the Life wherever you listen to podcasts. Video game addiction just became an official disease, at least according to the World Health Organization. It'll specifically be called gaming disorder, and it's expected to be a formal disease by next year. For those who struggle with this, the New York Times reports the new classification will help make sure insurance companies cover treatment and may encourage people to get help if they're ignoring other parts of their lives to play video games. The gaming industry does not love this new plan, though, and says games are often educational and therapeutic. 2.6 billion people play video games around the world, and that reportedly includes 2/3 of American homes. Android users rejoice. Google is rolling out Messages for Web, meaning you can now sync and send text messages from your Android straight from your laptop or desktop. TechCrunch says it's Google's response to the iPhone's iMessage, and Google's version will let you send stickers, GIFs, emojis, and images, as well as text. Apple also announced something new, something to help out in an emergency. In the next iPhone software update, iOS 12, people who call 911 from their iPhone will automatically share their exact location with first responders, which of course is helpful if seconds count. Apple says the data will only go to the 911 center responding. Expect that new software update later this year, possibly in September. Today is Juneteenth, aka Freedom Day. It's a celebration of the end of slavery in the U.S. It was on June 19th, 1865, when the last slaves in Texas were freed. And yes, that was a couple years after President Abraham Lincoln made slavery illegal. It just took time for everyone to find out and actually comply. Many people celebrate Juneteenth like the 4th of July with parties and picnics. All right, let's talk about the big winners at the MTV Movie and TV Awards. Black Panther got the most awards with 4, including Best Movie. As for TV, Netflix's Stranger Things was the big winner with 3 awards, including Best Show. The host, Tiffany Haddish, also won an award for her role in the movie Girls Trip. And that's it for today. Thanks again for listening. Please be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And of course, I love it when you share the newsworthy with your friends. If you want to read more about any of the news stories mentioned in today's episode, just go to the homepage of thenewsworthy.com. From there, click episodes and find today's date. The Newsworthy is ready for you to listen every weekday by 4 in the morning Eastern Time. So we'll chat again tomorrow. Have a great day.